Hey Stevie, how are you?
Good.
Good to see you again.
Good to see you too.
I've got some questions for you.
Okay.
What's your favourite movie?
The Libertine with Johnny Depp, where he says in the prologue, "You will not like me. I do not want you to like me." He's a poet and private advisor and entertainer of King Charles. And it's just the discharge, because it involves the first beginnings of theatre in England. And he becomes mentor to a theatre actress who is absolutely shamed off the stage. And then he takes her aside and he teaches her about the art of acting on the stage. And I just think it's one of the greatest pieces of film I've ever seen. And the second one is a little film that was put out. It's a very simple little film, and it's called Beautiful Fantastic, with Jessica Brown-Findlay and another very famous actor, senior actor, who I've just forgotten the name of. But I watched it again the other day and it just brought tears to my eyes. And it just involves location, 2 flats in the centre of London. And then the third movie is a movie with Brad Pitt and Anthony Hopkins called Legends of the Fall. I just think that that's one of the greatest films I've ever seen.
What's your favourite word, Stevie?
I think my favourite word is sensational. Sensational. Yeah, that says it all really. But probably 2 more is Lennon's Imagine, because I think that the word imagine does actually represent the evolution of the human soul. And the third one is a word that Sting came up with in one of his songs called Fragile. So I think the fragility of the human race is evident. And the only way we're going to survive is by using our imagination. And then we can all say sensational at the end.
You wear a lot of hats, Stevie. What I'm wondering is, what appeals to you more? Is it writing or composing music?
Both. Writing and composing. I think they all go hand in hand. I love the feeling of the relaxed feeling sometimes of writing, and just taking my time and looking out into the garden and taking in, things around me, animals or and just being able to drift off into another world, like a fantasy world. There's something about music. I'd say music is my greatest love, because, just yesterday I was listening to a program on the BBC, and all I heard was these women in Africa starting the beat of drums, African drums, and it just stopped me. It just absolutely stopped me. So I think music, because music stops people speaking. And I think most of the problems in the world is as a result of people speaking. So when music comes on, everyone shuts up and they listen to their own souls for a while. So I think that that's the most important area of life is music, And as Jesus said, once apparently, he said, "Live your life with 2 ears and 1 mouth," and in that order. And I think that that's probably very good advice from probably the greatest enigma of any time.
Do you feel like your composition and your ability to compose music plays a part in the stories that you tell and the projects you're creating?
Absolutely. then again, they were all happening at the one time. So a lot of the music that I've written for, you know, Breaking the Fourth Wall, a futuristic rock star movie, happened at the one time. I'd be at the table writing the script, and then I'd bolt over to the piano and backwards and forwards. So it was really just a sort of like a creative stream.
Music seems to be intuitive for you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Well, yeah. The theme song for Breaking the Fourth Wall is back at the house on a table. Lyrics, melody, 1 hour. Beautiful track. I can't remember how it even goes. I'm actually scared to go back to it because I'm frightened of losing it. Like, I've got 400 or 500 tracks in the law office, completely done, with lyrics, melodies, tapes, the whole thing, and they're all in 7 or 8 boxes, brimmed totally to the top of each box. And I'm so frightened to look into those boxes to work out what I've actually written in the past, because I've only had a certain amount of time to, and the tracks that I've recorded, I've just pulled them at random out of a box, just going, oh, that one or this one, you know.
Tell me a little bit about the psychic world and how it's relevant to you.
It's probably relevant in every way, really. It's just my experience, and I've been, in the company of 1 or 2 mediums by complete coincidence. Like, I was in these studios about a year ago, and I came in to, I think, actually sing a song and do a track with Robbie, and I walked past a room, and this someone was in the room being interviewed. I think by you, by you, and they said, "Whoa, look, come in here. There's a huge energy there." So I came in the room and spoke to that medium, Lizzie, and who immediately, I think she finished off her interview, and so she immediately channeled Michael, and then and then I just sat there, and she had a full-blown communication with Michael, the soul of Michael Hutchins, for a couple of hours, and they were cracking jokes together and all sorts. It was very funny.
So down in Sydney, regarding the Stanford Plaza, from about 2005 to 2010, you documented quite a lot of that building, didn't you, by video footage? Yeah,
in the last 5 days prior to its closure, Professor Hunter Corday and suggested that it might be a good idea to film the internals and externals of the Stanford Plaza. So we spent 5 days down there living in the hotel, and filming in internals of the room, corridors, every aspect of the internal part of the hotel, and also all the streets, because it was going to be demolished. So I thought, we better get this footage. Well, actually, it was Hunter Corday who suggested that we do this. So we did it over a period of 5 days, and it was good. It was great. We enjoyed it and that sort of stuff.
And what was the intention behind capturing that footage? It
might be the only footage that actually exists of the internals of the hotel, because it was due to be demolished for a massive development, and then the government rejected the application, and of course there was massive outcry with the community in Double Bay about changing it from what it is, and so they won out, and it's just been renovated into another hotel, like I think it's called the Cosmopolitan or something. I've never been back there.
Do you think you ever will go back there?
To the Cosmopolitan? Oh, yeah, I will, yeah. Yeah, why not? You know, why not go? Double Bay is a great place. I haven't been back there for many years. Well, I haven't been back there since 2010.
Michael talked a lot about something called ritual humiliation. What did he mean by that?
Yeah, well, it's a term that he's used many times to me, and most probably many times at the end of his life. You know, because he sang these hit songs and represented was the front man for In Excess, who are a great band and probably Australia's greatest band. In his mind, he wanted to move on, and thankfully he did move on and write his own solo music, which was amazing. You know, with Max Q and where he went in as an alias when he wasn't working with or touring with In Excess, and wrote all this incredible stuff. The sort of music the direction he wanted to take his music, and the sounds that he was hearing, you know. And then, of course, he wrote his solo album before he passed.
Now, in 1996, Oliver Stone offered him a role. Is that right, to Michael?
He was offered a role to play the Jim Morrison for the Jim Morrison story. And I think that the boys in INXS thought that maybe it might affect the INXS, you know, banner or brand or whatever. So Michael decided not to do the role, but he was chosen first, apparently, over Val Kilmer, who stepped up to the role and did a great job, and Val Kilmer actually got the Oscar. He got the Oscar for the Jim Morrison story, although the movie as such was not a success at the box office. It was critically acclaimed, but it wasn't a success because most biopics don't succeed.
Few projects in the works that I want to ask you about.
Yes.
The first one is titled The Wonder Boy of Hollywood. Now, I believe this is the story of Irving Thalberg.
I just came across him by total coincidence, and I haven't actually had the time to sit down and write his story, but I've registered the trademark, The Wonder Boy of Hollywood, and he strikes me as an incredible human being. I think he died in 1936, and at the age of 20, he was one of the leading producers. He actually set up Hollywood. He was able to establish himself in Hollywood as one of the greatest producers of all time. So I want to write his story. I think he's deserving of it, and maybe I'm deserving of it too. It'll take a lot of work, obviously, you know.
Now, tell me about the story of Flight of the Albatross, which I believe is about the life of Mary Broad.
Yeah, well, I came across her reading about the First Fleet, and I just the courage of this lady and her journey from London to Australia and then back to London as part of the First Fleet and then as an escapee. I just absolutely enthralled with the courage and tenacity of this lady. I just think that she and the faith and that was, you know, discharged throughout her life, and her tenacious spirit in holding on to survival was just absolutely incredible, and I think it should be put on the screen. So I'm about halfway through her story. which I think would be a television series. I'm just writing scene after scene after scene, and following her story across the ocean, and as part of the First Fleet. But even just getting to Australia was an absolute miracle. And of course, the ships, they followed the Albatross across the skies. So the Albatross was actually showed them the way to Australia, or Van Diemen's Land. And then there's an escape, and it's her journey back to England. So it's an extraordinary story. Well, it starts in 1786 when Mary Broad is brought before the Crown, convicted with two other female compatriots of robbing this young woman, and so she was sentenced to death, immediate death, and she was due to be hung. And right at that moment, she gets a reprieve, and as the Crown, as pressure is placed on the Crown to send women with the male convicts to Australia to start the colony and to be the breeders of other children and that sort of thing. So she's avoids death, and then it moves across 1788 with the First Fleet, where they land at Port Jackson, Van Diemen's Land, and then the escape back to England. But what the escapees go through is just absolutely beyond what anyone could even imagine. And then of course it covers the Australian, the colony and England, and it brings in all the a connection with the early Aborigines of Australia, and what they went through as well. So it's so she goes back a few years later, and she disappears into the mists of time, and there's no actual date, official date about when she passed over. She just disappears into the mists in southern England. So it's that period of 30 or 40 years that we're looking at. Because in those days they didn't, human beings didn't live as long as they do these days. It was over Red Rover at a much earlier date. Well, the purpose of going back to England, there was no purpose. She was caught. She was actually caught and by the Dutch and handed over to the English, and she was going home to England to be hung. So that was her only purpose, and of course she had two children with her that she had to look after, and certain things happen on the ship, and but she actually makes it back to England, and she goes before the Crown and goes into prison, London prison, and she's due to be hung for her escape and for her criminal background.
Now you have a feature film about a ballroom dancing couple of Latin Americans, and it's the life story of the world's greatest dancers.
Well, they exist, and I'm hoping to get the rights to their life. And I just they're the greatest Latin American professionals, and amateurs from 2010 to now. There's some absolutely stunning, ballroom dancers across the world in Latin, in modern and old time. But these two are so far above the rest, and that's really being very, very tough on the rest, because they're absolutely stunning. The rest, but these two, one's a Russian girl, and the other one, and the male is an Italian, and they've been world champions since 2010. And I want to write their story because I think their dedication to ballroom dancing throughout the world has just been absolutely extraordinary. I mean, you look at them on the internet, and you just shake your head, because at some stages they come across the screen, you can barely see them moving. They're just absolutely, they've inspired me. I can't pronounce the name of the lady, but the fellow, the Italian guy is a man by the name of Cucci, and if you dial them up on the internet, you just watch them for, I could watch them for days, because it's part of my past, as going through ballroom dancing, and I just would like to dedicate a feature film to them if they're, up for the ride.
Tell me about the Morrigan, ancient warrior princess of Ireland.
The Morrigan is a story I'd love to write about, an ancient from the ancient myths of time in Ireland, and a very, very famous spiritual figure in Irish history, and it goes back. I don't know how far it goes back, but she appears as a raven, and I'd like to study this character from Irish ancient history, and write a television series for it at some stage down the line. I think it's very interesting character. A little bit like the Vikings, but probably more exciting.
Tell me about the Kings of the Bloodline.
Kings of the Bloodline. It begins in an ancient territory in Wales called Powys, and it ends on the footsteps of Rome. And it's a journey that involves the lineage of the kings of early kings of England, and an individual who takes on the Roman Empire, meets up and has battles right throughout Europe, and makes his way down to the doorstep, or the steps of Rome. Yeah, I've been doing some background study on it, and I'd like to do a series on that as well. It's a huge project though. Yeah. Massive project. I'm probably going to need a team of writers. So, that'll be exciting as well. Delegation for a change, thank God.
And the Pillar of Wales.
There's a pillar, an ancient pillar in Wales that tells a story, about the beginnings of that journey. Yeah, and the bloodlines that come down through time. Yeah, and as I'm Welsh, I thought I better dedicate a series to that. Yeah, until, yeah. So there you go.
It's a full slate.
It's a full slate.